Millionaire CEO advertised cleaning job vacancy. Little twin girls walked into his office with their resume. Before we dive into this story, drop a comment below. Where in the world are you watching from? Subscribe and turn on notification to see more tales like this. Two little girls, hearts hammering against thin blue dresses, stood frozen in the blinding lobby of the most powerful man in the city. Their tiny hands clutched crumpled papers, resumes scribbled in pencil by 10-year-old fingers that should have been holding toys, not job applications. The marble floor beneath their worn shoes stretched like an ocean. Crystal chandeliers hung above them like distant stars, cold and unreachable. Everything in this place screamed money, money they desperately needed but could never touch. Ava's voice cracked as she whispered to the woman behind the desk. "We're here for the cleaning job." The receptionist's eyes turned to ice. Her lips twisted into a cruel smile. "Your children? This isn't a playground. Get out before I call security." Mia stepped forward, her small frame shaking. "Please, our mum is dying. We need—" "I said get out." The words hit them like a slap. Their mission, the one thing that could save their mother's life, was crumbling before their eyes. Weeks of door-to-door begging, counting pennies, and sleepless nights had led to this moment. This crushing, heartbreaking rejection. Time was running out. Their mother's treatment couldn't wait. And now, standing in this palace of wealth and power, they faced their worst nightmare, complete failure. But how did these two little girls end up in this nightmare? 3 days earlier, Ava had spotted a crumpled newspaper blowing in the wind. Her eyes caught 5 words that changed everything: cleaning job vacancy, good pay. The ad was for Zenith Enterprises, the biggest company in the city. While other kids played, these twins had been working odd jobs for months. Sweeping porches, carrying groceries, washing cars. But their jar of coins grew too slowly. Their mother, Isabella, was fading fast. The night before, they had pressed their ears to her bedroom door and heard her crying on the phone with the doctor. "I can't afford the treatment," she whispered. "How much time do I have left?" That's when the twins made their choice. They would get this cleaning job, no matter what. In their tiny apartment, they sat at the kitchen table with pencils and paper. Ava wrote carefully, "Resume, Ava, age 10. Experience, sweeping floors, washing dishes, helping neighbors." Mia copied the same words. These weren't real resumes, but they were written with the hope of children who believed hard work could save their mother. The morning of their mission, they chose their best clothes, the blue dresses their mother had sewn by hand. They combed their hair until it shined and practiced what they would say. "We're here for the cleaning job. We work very hard. Please give us a chance." The bus ride across the city felt like traveling to another world. Their small town had broken sidewalks and peeling paint. But as they got closer to downtown, the buildings grew taller, the cars got shinier, and everything looked more expensive. Then they saw it. Zenith Enterprises rose from the ground like a giant made of glass and steel. People in perfect suits walked in and out, talking on phones worth more than their rent. The twins felt smaller with each step toward the entrance. Inside, the lobby was a palace of marble and gold. The ceiling stretched so high they had to crane their necks to see the top. Rich people in expensive clothes walked past without looking at them. The twins clutched their handwritten resumes tighter. This was their last chance. They had tried everything else. Door-to-door jobs had failed. Neighbors had no more work to give. Their mother's condition was getting worse every day. The doctor had been clear. Without treatment, they would lose her. With trembling hands and racing hearts, they approached the reception desk. The woman behind it looked like she had never worried about money a day in her life. Her clothes were perfect, her hair was perfect, everything about her screamed wealth and power. The twins took a deep breath. Their mother's life depended on what happened next. The receptionist looked at them like they had just asked to fly to the moon. Her perfectly painted lips curled into a sneer as she glanced at their crumpled papers. "Are you serious? Your children? This is a professional company, not a daycare center." Her voice cut through the lobby like a knife. "We have policies. Rules. You can't just walk in here and expect us to hire kids." Ava's voice cracked as she held up their handwritten resumes. "Please, we really need this job. We can clean anything, floors, windows, bathrooms. We're not afraid of hard work." Mia stepped closer, her small hands pressed together like she was praying. "Our mum is really sick. The doctor says she needs medicine or she'll. The word stuck in her throat. She couldn't say it out loud. Couldn't say the word that kept her awake at night. The receptionist's face didn't soften even a little. "That's not my problem. This is against company policy. Children cannot work here. Period. You need to leave right now before I call security." The twins felt their world crashing down around them. This was it. Their last hope. They had walked door to door for weeks. They had saved every penny they could find. They had tried everything, and nothing had worked. Their mother was getting weaker every day, and now this woman was throwing them out like garbage. Ava's eyes filled with tears, but she refused to let them fall. "Please, just give us a chance. We promise we'll work harder than anyone. We just want to help our mum get better." The answer is no. "I don't care about your sob story. You're wasting my time. Leave now, or I'm calling the police." The words hit them like a punch to the stomach. Mia grabbed Ava's hand, and they both stood there, frozen. All their hope, all their dreams of saving their mother, were dying right in front of them. The marble lobby suddenly felt colder. The sparkling light seemed to mock their failure. Rich people walked past them without a second glance, living in a world where money was never a problem. Then, cutting through their despair like thunder, came the sharp ding of an elevator. The receptionist's entire body went stiff. Her angry expression melted away and was replaced by something the twins had never seen before: fear. She quickly straightened her jacket and fixed her hair, her hands shaking slightly. The twins turned to see what had changed everything. Expensive leather shoes stepped out of the elevator, shoes that probably cost more than their family spent on food in a month. The man wearing them was tall, dressed in a suit that looked like it was made just for him. Everything about him screamed power and money. When he walked, people moved out of his way. When he looked around the lobby, conversation stopped. This wasn't just any rich person, this was someone who owned everything they could see. A deep voice, calm but commanding, cut through the silence. "What's going on here?" The receptionist's voice turned into a nervous squeak. "Oh, Mr. CEO, sir. These children came in asking about the cleaning job. I was just explaining that we can't hire minors. Company policy, of course. I was handling it. They were just leaving." The man said nothing. The silence stretched on forever. The twins could hear their own hearts beating. They could feel his eyes on them, studying them like they were puzzle pieces he was trying to figure out. Finally, after what felt like hours, he spoke. Just 5 simple words that changed everything. "Bring them to my office." The receptionist's mouth fell open. The twins stared at each other in shock. Was this really happening? After all their failures, after being kicked out and laughed at, was someone finally going to listen to them? A tiny spark of hope flickered in their hearts. Maybe, just maybe, they still had a chance to save their mother. The elevator ride felt like flying to another planet. The twins pressed themselves against the back wall, afraid to touch anything. When the doors opened, they stepped into a world they had only seen in movies. The office was bigger than their entire apartment. Floor-to-ceiling windows showed the whole city spread out below them like a toy set. But it wasn't the size that scared them most, it was how quiet everything was. How serious. How far away from home they felt. The man walked behind his massive desk and turned to face them. Up close, he looked younger than they expected, but his eyes held the weight of someone who made decisions that affected thousands of people every day. He didn't sit down. He didn't smile. He just looked at them with those sharp eyes and asked one simple question, "Tell me exactly why you need this job." The twins looked at each other. This was it. Their one chance. If they messed this up, their mother would die. Ava took a shaky breath and began. "Our mum has been sick for a really long time. The doctors say she has something rare, something that's eating her up from the inside. Every month, she gets weaker. Every month, she smiles less." Mia's voice was barely a whisper. She used to paint beautiful pictures. Our whole apartment was full of colors, blues and yellows and reds that made everything feel warm. But now her hands shake too much to hold a brush. "The medicine she needs costs so much money," Ava continued, her words tumbling out faster now. "We've tried everything. We've knocked on every door in our neighborhood asking for work. We've washed cars, swept porches, carried groceries. But it's never enough." The man behind the desk said nothing. He just listened, his face giving away nothing. "Last week, we heard her talking to the doctor on the phone," Mia's voice cracked. She was crying. She said she couldn't afford the treatment. She asked how much time she had left. Ava wiped her nose with the back of her hand. "We're not supposed to know, but we do. Without the medicine, she won't see Christmas. Maybe not even Halloween." The silence in the office was so thick you could cut it with a knife. Outside the windows, the city hummed with life, but in this room, everything had stopped. "She doesn't know we're here," Mia whispered. "She thinks we're at school. If she knew what we were doing, she'd be so upset. She always tells us that kids should be kids. But we can't just watch her fade away." Ava's hands were shaking as she held up their crumpled resumes. "We know we're just kids. We know we're not strong like grown-ups. But we can work hard. We can clean anything you need cleaned. We can stay late. We can come early. We just want our mum to get better." Something flickered in the man's eyes. For just a moment, his face softened, like he was remembering something from long ago. "She used to sing to us," Mia continued, tears finally spilling down her cheeks. "Every night before bed, she'd sing these made-up songs about princesses and dragons and happy endings. But she hasn't sung in months. She's too tired now. We used to have dance parties in our kitchen," Ava added. "She'd turn up the radio and we'd all dance around, even when dinner was just beans and rice. She made everything fun even when we didn't have much." The man walked to his window and stared out at the city. His hands were clasped behind his back, and for a long moment, he said nothing. "The doctors say there's still hope," Ava's voice was getting smaller now. "They say if she starts the treatment soon, she might get better. She might paint again. She might sing again. But without it. She couldn't finish the sentence. Neither twin could say the words out loud. We've counted every penny we've saved, Mia whispered. We have $43.16. That's all we have in the whole world. But the treatment costs thousands and thousands. Ava looked directly at the man, her young eyes fierce with determination. We're not asking for charity, sir. We want to work. We want to earn the money. We'll scrub floors until our hands bleed. We'll clean toilets, wash windows, empty trash cans. Anything you need. Please, Mia's voice was breaking now. We just want our mum to get better. We want her to smile again. We want her to paint again. We want her to dance with us in the kitchen again. Both girls stood there, their hearts laid bare, their souls exposed. Everything they loved most in the world was slipping away, and these four walls held their last hope. Please, sir, Ava whispered, her voice barely audible. We just want our mum to live. The office fell silent again. The only sound was the quiet tick of an expensive clock on the wall, counting down the seconds of their mother's life. The Millionaire CEO, Nathaniel, turned away from the window and looked directly at the two girls. His voice was calm, almost gentle, but his words hit them like a hammer. You can't have the job. The twins felt their world collapse all over again. After everything they had shared, after pouring out their hearts, after believing for one impossible moment that someone might help them, it was over. Ava felt her knees go weak. Mia grabbed her sister's hand, both of them staring at the floor, trying not to cry in front of this powerful man who had just crushed their last hope. Your children, he continued, his voice still quiet. You belong in school, not scrubbing floors in some office building. You should be playing with friends, doing homework, being kids. The silence stretched on forever. The twins stood there, broken, waiting for him to call security and have them thrown out like the receptionist had wanted to do from the beginning. Then he said something that changed everything. But your mother will get her treatment. I'll make sure of it. The words hung in the air like magic. The twins looked up, their eyes wide, not sure they had heard correctly. Had he really just said what they thought he said? I'm sorry, sir. Ava whispered, her voice shaking. Nathaniel walked back to his desk and sat down, his expression serious but kind. I said your mother will get her treatment. All of it. Whatever she needs. I'll pay for everything. Mia's hands flew to her mouth. You mean it? The tears they had been holding back for weeks finally broke free. They streamed down their faces as they stared at this man who had just offered them the impossible. But why? Ava asked through her sobs. We're nobody. We don't have anything to give you back. Nathaniel was quiet for a moment, looking at something far away. When he spoke, his voice was softer than before. You remind me of someone I used to know. Someone who had nothing but refused to give up. Someone who would have done anything to save the people they loved. He paused. That someone was me, a long time ago. He stood up and walked around his desk, stopping in front of them. I haven't always been rich. I haven't always had power. There was a time when I was desperate too. When I needed help and had nowhere to turn. But you're so successful now, Mia said, wiping her eyes. Success means nothing if you can't use it to help others, he replied. I have more money than I could spend in 10 lifetimes. What good is it if I just let it sit in a bank while people like your mother suffer? Ava could barely speak. So you'll really pay for her medicine? All of it? All of it, he confirmed. But that's not everything. I'm also setting up a fund for your education. Both of you. College, if you want it. Whatever you need to build the futures you deserve. The twins looked at each other in shock. This couldn't be real. Things like this didn't happen to people like them. Why are you doing this? Emma asked. Because you two little girls just taught me something I had forgotten, Nathaniel said. You showed me what real courage looks like. What real love looks like. You were willing to sacrifice everything for someone else. That's rare in this world. He knelt down so he was at their eye level. But I need you to promise me something in return. Anything, Ava said quickly. Promise me you'll stay brave. Promise me you'll stay kind. And promise me that one day, when you're older and you have the chance, you'll help someone else the way I'm helping you today. Both girls nodded eagerly. We promise, they said together. Good. Nathaniel stood up and extended his hand. Then we have a deal. Ava and Emma looked at his outstretched hand, the hand that had just saved their mother's life, the hand that had given them hope when they had none left. They each shook it, their small hands disappearing in his grip. It wasn't just a handshake, it was a promise. A promise that kindness would live on, that love would win, that they would never forget this moment or the man who changed everything. Now, Nathaniel said with the first real smile they had seen from him, let's call the hospital and get your mother the help she needs. In that moment, two little girls learned that miracles do happen. And sometimes, they come dressed in expensive suits, sitting behind big desks, waiting for someone brave enough to ask. The twins floated out of that office like they were walking on clouds. Their hands, which had clutched crumpled resumes just hours before, now held something far more precious, hope. The receptionist's jaw dropped as they passed her desk. Her eyes followed them to the elevator, confusion written all over her face. What had just happened up there? What had those two little girls said to change everything? High above the city, the Millionaire CEO stood at his window watching the tiny figures emerge from his building. For the first time in years, the cold calculation in his chest had been replaced by something warm. Something real. Something that reminded him why he had built this empire in the first place. Within days, Isabella was in the best hospital in the city. The treatment began immediately. The doctors who had once shaken their heads now spoke of hope, of chances, of tomorrows that might actually come. Week by week, color returned to Isabella's cheeks. Her hand stopped shaking. She picked up a paintbrush for the first time in months and watched as blues and yellows danced across the canvas again. The twins, freed from their crushing fear, became children again. They went to school without worrying about their mother dying alone at home. They played with friends instead of knocking on doors begging for work. They slept through the night without nightmares about losing the most important person in their world. And in their kitchen, music played again. Isabella sang those made-up songs about princesses and dragons and happy endings. The three of them danced around the small space, laughing until their sides hurt, celebrating each day they had together. Nathaniel, meanwhile, found himself changed. The encounter with two brave little girls had cracked something open inside him. He quietly began funding medical treatments for other families who couldn't afford them. He started scholarship programs for children who dreamed of futures beyond their circumstances. The cleaning job ad was never filled. It didn't need to be. Two 10-year-old girls had walked into that lobby asking for work and had given something far more valuable in return. They had reminded a powerful man what his wealth was really for. Sometimes, the most unexpected moments create the biggest changes. A child's love, a desperate plea, and one person's choice to listen, these simple things had the power to save lives and transform hearts. True wealth, it turned out, wasn't about what you could buy. It was about what you could give. And on that day, everyone won. Two little girls walked into a fortress of power armed only with love. And walked out with their mother's life. Think about that for a moment. In a world where money talks and power rules, two 10-year-olds with handwritten resumes changed everything. They didn't have connections. They didn't have wealth. They didn't even have a real plan. But they had something more powerful than all of that. They had love that refused to give up. Share this, someone needs this story of hope today. This story reminds us that miracles happen when desperation meets compassion. When someone with power chooses to see beyond their own world. When a child's love becomes unstoppable. How many times do we walk past opportunities to be someone's miracle? How many Avas and Mias cross our path every day, carrying burdens too heavy for their small shoulders? Nathaniel could have said no. He could have followed company policy. He could have protected his image and sent them away. But he chose to listen. He chose to act. He chose to be the answer to their prayers. The ripple effects of that choice are still spreading. One family saved. One man transformed. Countless others touched by his newfound purpose. All because two brave little girls refused to let their mother fade away without a fight. If this story moved you, please tap subscribe and hit the notification bell. You won't miss our next powerful tale. Did this ending surprise you? Could you be that force of kindness? Let's talk. What's your biggest takeaway? Comment below, your thoughts fuel this channel. Sometimes the smallest acts of courage create the biggest miracles. Today, let that courage be yours.